This meeting is being recorded.
What's happening, racing fans? Welcome back to the channel, brought to you in association with betting.co.uk. I'm your host, Ginger Joe, and I'm back with another episode of the Countdown to Cheltenham series. But this week it's a little bit more exciting. I've got my usual wingman, Joe McCabe here, but we've been very kindly joined by the man in demand at the moment. We've got Johnny Dineen. How you doing, Johnny?
Very good, lads. Very good. Very good.
Thanks for joining us, Johnny. Do appreciate
No worries. No problem.
Appreciate you being here very much. But Joe, what about you? How you doing, my friend?
Yes, very good. Thanks. Just got back from Dublin. It was a very good weekend there for the first time. I think I'll be working overtime at work for the next couple of weeks to make up for it because it wasn't the best punting day. But yeah, it was a great experience and I'll be there again next year.
I think we all found Monday a little bit difficult, didn't we, after the highs of this weekend, that's for sure. But right, so what we're going to do, we're going to get stuck straight in. We're going to look at the three novice hurdle races, just a little bit of a brief outview of what's been going on in the three races as the lineup starts to shorten up a little bit. I'll start with the Supreme. We're going to step up in trip and then we'll just see how we get on. So we're going to start with the Supreme. The market has really opened up this weekend in particular since the defeat of Facile Vega. He's gone from 5-6 out to 7-2. Now, Willie's come out and said that he's got him home, he's had him checked out, and he has come back lame. But even if you're a forgiven type, for me, there's not a lot of time between now and Cheltenham to get him right. And it looks like the bookies may be ahead of us, at least for race one, regardless of what happens with the amount of ACCAs that have gone down. And Johnny, I know you're not too keen on Facile Vega after that performance, but after Willie's comments, has that made you change your mind at all? Or are you still in the camp that he's a bit of a gone horse?
I couldn't have him at all, Joe. I couldn't. Look, he was supposed to be checked out Sunday, was fine. Suddenly he's lame 2 days later. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like, I mean, I never trained a horse. I don't know. But look, I'd be skeptical about that one anyway, to be honest. The way he cut out, it didn't really look like he was lame. The way he cut out like a horse that bled anyway, in my eyes. Or he has a fibrillating heart. He cut out too quick to be lame. You know what I mean? At what stage did he go lame in the race anyway? Who knows? I presume horses are like would be naturally probably stiff after a race. Did half of them would trot up lame, even yokes that won even, you know what I mean? I'm not buying that lame stuff anyway. And even if it is true, there must be a chance you won't even make the meeting anyway now, even if he does happen to have a bit of an injury or whatever, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we've got less than 5 weeks now. It's certainly a worry for me. And I feel like Paul would have rode him out if he still thought there was some horse underneath him, regardless of that finishing position. Joe, are you any more forgiving? Does the 7-2 tempt you in a little bit, or are you off him as well?
Yeah, he was a horse that I always thought something was gonna beat him in the Supreme. I just didn't know what. And off the back of that performance, I can't have him at all, to be honest, because I'm not sure why he was such a confirmed front runner over hurdles. His best run probably when winning the Champion Bumper, he was held up, but he went and set some pretty strong fractions. But it's not as if he went off too hard, then came back to them, because horses like that, they at least get into the home straight before going backwards. He was beaten when the bypassed 2 out. He stopped very quickly, and he was kind of a horse that as soon as a horse came up beside him, he just kind of spat his dummy out and went backward. So he's definitely not for me.
I mean, to me as well, his price tag of 5-6 was actually based on likely improvement, which obviously now hasn't happened. So even if he did come back to form, that actually, personally, I still don't think would be good enough. That price was still based on that improvement. I feel like these novice hurdlers as well, I feel like they need a smooth campaign at this stage. I think it's quite detrimental to how they improve in the future. I mean, it just shows how quickly things can change though, doesn't it? And I think I'm going to stick him in the Fernie Hollow category, at least for now. Johnny, what did you make of High Definition then fall in so early? I mean, it didn't help, obviously, us figure too much out about him, but he seemed to be travelling with a little bit more ease than what Facile did, certainly to my eye.
Yeah, and mine too. The only thing I would say, excuse me, I'm after hearing that he actually struck into himself on Sunday, and that wouldn't be ideal either now, you know, for Cheltenham. But his jumping is obviously exactly as he. Like, I mean, he only jumped he only arrived at 4 hurdles, and he kind of made 2 mistakes out of 4. So that he wouldn't get away with that kind of stuff at Cheltenham. Look, if he got into a rhythm, he's a dangerous horse to be let loose in front, and because he's obviously, as everyone knows, he's got a big engine. Look, he'd have 5 weeks to get him right, get him jumping properly. Look, I'm not saying he'd win around, but he has a sporting chance if he got loose before. And the way he put away Facile Vega, I don't think anything want to go next or near him at the start of the race in Cheltenham. Anyway, they'll definitely leave him off because it looks like if you go near him, you won't be finishing.
It's going to be a bit of a case of catch me if you can, isn't it? With him, he's just going to be off from the start and see if they can peg him back, right? Do you think?
I think that's the only chance he has of winning, and that has to be the way they'll ride him. Yeah, I think so. Look, he was a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde in the flat too. But look, if you hit him on a going day and he started jumping the hurdles well, he's very dangerous horse to be let loose in front because he stays very strongly. Like if he did happen to jump the hurdles properly and he was a couple of inches in front off the last bend, no way would he get caught. Not a hope in hell.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Guys, put some shivers down with spotting that with Joe. So does this mean Ilite Tomp just fits in for you two then? Joe, go over to you as his number one. Some reason I'm not a huge fan of him even after this weekend. I can't quite put my finger on why at the moment, to be honest. But does he slot in as the number one, or does this bring Gaelic Warrior back into the equation, Impere Pass, or are they just both going to be going to the Ballymore, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think he's definitely Willie Mullins' number one now. I think it's probably quite unusual to be running in the Supreme just because he did run in the Triumph. He had a campaign, so he's probably the most experienced horse in the lineup. That'll put him in good stead. And he just travelled behind the pace and he picked up, he quickened, and he went away near the line as well. Even if you take out Facile Vega, he beat the second by 10 lengths as well. So the form of that is very solid. I mean, he's probably got a bit of a weird profile, but he's definitely got a good chance. And the one worry would be usually in the Supreme, you do kind of want to be positive, making all, or kind of sitting close to the pace. He's probably going to come from further back, but I think he does have that turn of foot to pass rivals. So I think he'd have every chance of placing in this race.
Especially like what Johnny said, with high definition likely to go off in front, it may actually just bring him in a nice track into this race. Any love for Tarmoris here, guys, at all, Johnny?
He looks kind of he looks softish ground horse. Well, like not you wouldn't imagine he'd like springish ground. I don't know. Look, I don't think that Talbot hurdle was a wonderful race. I thought he was up against it. He's a likeable horse, all right. He's a good, strong stayer. Look, I wouldn't say he's no chance, but look, as you said earlier on, the race has really developed into an open-looking contest now. All of a sudden, like, you know what I mean? There's nothing there that you'd say is anything remotely like a good thing or anything like it. You couldn't even say pick out a horse that would definitely be in the first three. Now looking at it right now, like, will Marine National even be placed? It could be a good horse, but it has a bit to prove too. Like suddenly beating Irish Point don't look that clever after. Like, Irish Point couldn't walk in that race the other day against Facile Vega. It was the first class beat. Look, Rare Edition that runs tomorrow. I don't know. Gaelic Warrior shifts out to his right. Imperial, will he go there? It's wide open now. It is wide open. They'll probably bet 3 or 4 to 1 the field now by the looks of it.
Well, it's not going to be good news for my followers anyway, Johnny, because I'm all in on Marine National this year. He was the first one I put up in our series. We've got 28 to 1. We're sitting pretty for now, but of course he's got to go and get the job done. But I think that win against Irish Point had a little bit more substance to it than what we think. He was shuffled back sort of 3 times, and he managed to just sit back on the bridle, even though he lost the length. So I love Mikey O'Sullivan. He sat there quietly, didn't panic. And what I liked as well, even when he fluffed the last, he sort of had 4 big mistakes in that race that weren't necessarily his fault, but he still managed to find a turn of foot to get the job done. There's not many horses now that hit the hurdles the way he did. Not his fault, actually. I think it was things that were in front of him and in his way, and managed to sit back on the bridle and find a turn of foot. I think we saw a decent Irish Point that day, and I would actually mark at that Marine National performance a little bit. I think he just travels immensely well. I think he's going to travel over anything that we've got in the Supreme. Now, I was cautious of Facile Vega, of course I was, but for me now, he should be the clear favourite. Novices shouldn't necessarily be a favourite horse as well, but I'm just absolutely in love with him. I think he's equine perfection. So I'm definitely putting the big spuds all on Marine National, putting the neck on the line for him as well. But Joe, have you got any love for Marine like I do?
Yeah, I think, well, if you go off what the trainer says, then you'll have to get on him now because Barry Connell seems certain he's going to win. I mean, he probably does have that turn of foot. I think he's probably one of the ones that will definitely run well in the race. I'd love to be on him at 28 to 1. If he's going to win it, I'm not too sure. I mean, it's weird sometimes. Well, he's having a work and is going to be turning up fresh, which might be a bit of a concern as well, because he's been off the track since December. That whether that works in his favour or not, that'll be found out. But I think he's one that's definitely going to run well in the race. And for your sake, I hope he does win at 28.
But look, it's in Barry we trust, absolutely. I mean, look, he thinks he's got a good thing in the Ballymore as well. And I remember the days when he had Martello Tower and the likes of O'Connor. I'm all in for Barry. I really hope it could be one of the big stories. He could have the winner of the Supreme and the Ballymore quite out of the blue, to be honest with you. So I'm all in on Marine the Machine, as he's soon to be named. Right, let's move on to the Ballymore then for the time being. We've got in the betting, we've got Hermes-Elen at 11-4. We've got Imperi Pass at 7-2. Goodland at 9-2 after winning the Nathaniel Lacey. Gaelic Warrior at 5s. Champ Kylie at 7-1. In the Pocket at 12s. And any price you like for the remainder. Joe, kick us off here with the favourite, Hermes-Elen. He's quite a dominant sort of horse, but is he dominant enough to go out there and win a Ballymore against these Irish horses, especially at 11-4?
Yeah, it's kind of, well, with Paul Nicholls, you immediately think back to Boivman's Game, who, of course, looked so dominant in hurdles, then turned up in the Ballymore and was well beaten. I think Hermes-Elen is a little bit different just because he's more of a hurdler than Boivman's Game. Boivman's Game was always going to be a better chaser than a hurdler. Hermes-Elen has looked very fluent over his hurdles, and the way he won last time out, he just absolutely cruised into contention. He's definitely not going to get ground that heavy this time. Whether he can do it on a better surface, I'm not too sure, but the form probably isn't as good as the Irish horses as well, but the way in which he won was just so impressive, and he's probably Paul Nicholls' best chance of a festival winner.
What about you, Johnny? You in the same sort of camp as Joe? Are you as impressed as with his last run at all?
Well, he was impressive both days, but I just wondered what's he actually beating. I was very worried. I'd be very worried the way we've all been caught was exposed in that race in that Nathaniel Lacey race. Like I'd have thought that I actually thought it would run better than it did, and I thought like for English form it should have run better than it did. I mean, it absolutely disgraced itself, didn't it? Like it was walking in front going to the second last, and like any one of the rest of the field could pass it at any stage they wanted. Like beating Music Drive, and we've all been caught, and even that shallow hurdle form, I wonder is that any good either? Like that kind of form, I'm not too sure that it is. And look, he's a good horse, no question. He's a good horse, but there must be a chance that the English horses are way behind the Irish novices. You know, it mightn't be a Mullins or like dominate these races this year, but the English horses, like I don't know. You're looking at like Nicholls looks to be the one with Timurus and like in the 2 mile, and this is in the 2.5 mile. There's a good chance these horses are miles behind the Irish horses. I think that it's a possibility. I definitely wouldn't dream it back in him anyway. I definitely wouldn't dream it back in him. I think he has a chance, but only a chance. You know what I'm saying?
He's just going to go off and be a better chaser, isn't he? He's just simply one of these that's going to grow into his frame and become better next year. Like you, I don't really price at 11-4, is he? Especially with what's on offer. It's certainly not as good as the Nathaniel Lacey form. Now I know I'm becoming a bit of a Barry Connell fanboy, but going on to Goodland, he has been able to dictate a really good race from the front whilst showing a turn of gears, and I don't think Hermes-Elen's necessarily got that turn of foot. So I feel like he might get swallowed at the same, just like Brave Man's Game is. Especially, I don't care how well he's traveling come that turn, he's got to get up that hill with a turn of foot, because there's a few in behind here that we've seen some gears, and I want to see gears before getting involved at an 11-4 shot, especially over this sort of trip. But Willie's got a few in here now, and we all talk about this being a bit of a Willie bingo game, but I think he's even starting to play it himself. I'm not too sure where he thinks he's going to be sending his horses after what's just happened this weekend, but Imperi Pass, he does seem like the one that's probably more suited to the Ballymore. Again, he's shown a few gears. Johnny, are you in the camp of Imperi Pass? Are you sweet on his chances or not?
Again, Joe, he's a chance, but like a lot of his horses, they've run against nothing, and you don't even know. It's pure guesswork as to actually how good they are. You know, like you have an idea how good Gaelic Warrior is because he has form with in the Boodles last year. He's formed off of 1-4-3 in handy, but like Imperial Passes, the 2 horses it beat the last day are no use really. Do you know what I mean? You just don't know how good that horse is. And the race in one in Naas was a no race, so it's absolute pure and utter guesswork as to how good he is. Look, he looks a smart horse. I don't know how smart he is. You'd want to be in the inner circle, like the real inner circle, to know exactly how good he is. I wouldn't be backing him anyway. But look, if he's stable selected, you'd have to respect that when the time comes. Gaelic Warrior to me shifts too much to the right. I think in a race in Cheltenham, you can't have any flaws. You can't be losing a length here and there, and even violently right at the last hurdle in Leopardstown. Like, he's a horse that you could see, even if he gets to the second last, he'll definitely lose a length there, and he could lose 2 or 3 lengths at the last hurdle. He surely hasn't more than that in hand anyway. Like, Cham Kiley is a solid horse. Again, it's an open race. It's more open than is now in the Ballymore. Like, normally there's a skinny one in it. I don't think there's going to be a short price favourite in it this year anyway. Like, because none of these horses are going to run anymore now. The Imperial Pass and Gaelic Warrior, Goodland, they've all their running done. Cham Kiley, everything has its more or less half their cards on the table anyway. American Mike could come into it now. Who knows? He's due to run on Saturday. You just wouldn't know if he put a win in his card. Who knows? Like, look, I think it's still an open enough race. I don't have a huge opinion in it, to be honest. Like, Goodland is a solid horse. Like, he travels well, and he was a bit free even the last day in Leopardstown, and he still managed to win. I like horses that are like, he wasn't unmanageably free, but he could have been more settled, I'd like to put it, and he still was able to win. And he won well too, Goodland. He's a good horse, Goodland. I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion as such. I couldn't nail I'll probably have a betting race when the time comes, but at the moment, I couldn't pick anything really solid anyway.
What about you, Joe? I sort of agree with Johnny. The one that looks sort of half decent right now, there was the Goodland form, at least in the Nathaniel Lacey. Like you said, I like the fact he's still a little bit raw, but he really learned on the job. He got better the further he went, and he never looked like getting caught. Even when Absolute Notions came from the pack and started closing the gap on him, it didn't necessarily bother any of the Goodland backers, and he actually found for pressure. Again, I like horses that do a few little things wrong and still win well, because it just leaves them open to a little bit more improvement. I feel like he's one coming to the Cheltenham Festival, again, that he could just be peaked for one more big run. But again, I'm just sounding like a Barry Connell fanboy. Joe, tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, he's definitely a horse that probably sets the standard. I think the form of that race probably is the best on offer so far. I think American Mike is completely forgotten in this, just because of one bad run over 2.5 miles on ground that was probably a little bit too soft for him, or there might have been excuses. I think the bumper form, him and Facile Vega were the 2 best bumper horses last year. He ran well enough on his hurdles debut, and then he was pretty much put in his place. But I think there was excuses, and he was always going a yard too fast over 2.5 miles. He's entered over 2 miles on Sunday, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I just think they're trying to get another run and a little bit more experience into him. But as Johnny said, if he gets his head in front over 2 miles, or even if he jumps a little bit better, he's going to be open to so much improvement. And if he jumps well, I think he'll definitely like a trip like this. And at 20-1, he could easily go off half that price on the day.
Like you said, with it being an open race as well, things can definitely still happen between now and Cheltenham. It's just this bumper form. I don't think, again, American Mike's done anything with credible value yet. I mean, Joe, you've proved me wrong plenty of times, but just on paper, which doesn't always tell the story, I still just think he's got a lot to live up to. Johnny, are you not flattened by American Mike, what we've seen so far with the bumper form that we've seen now from Facile Vega and the flopper that he put in this weekend?
Yeah, look, Joe, Facile Vega for some reason didn't give his running. Like, he didn't give his running. He didn't give his running from that. I wouldn't really be worried about the bumper form now working out. I mean, I think horses go wrong all the time. You know what I mean? I mean, some of the best horses in the bumper, like James's Gate and Redemption Day, didn't get a chance to do anything this year as such. Like, I think American Mike has probably got American Mike bled in Navan. That's what happened to him. And I would say that something similar happened to the other guy last Sunday. So they're not giving the running. I don't necessarily believe that that their form last year, or they're not top horses, but a horse is never going to show its ability if it has an issue. And I would say both of them, now whether they come back from those things, who knows? But I still think they have a lot of ability, both horses. But whether they'll ever be able to show it, I mean, the game is littered with horses that are not able to show their ability because they have some sort of a physical impediment, either breeding or bleeding or all these kind of things. You know what I mean? So look, if they can get him back, I could see him, like, it'd be interesting to see how he gets on now next Saturday, you know, because he was ready to run last weekend, and only for a bereavement he would have run. So they think he's somewhere back in play anyway. So he could come into this. He could still come into it. Who knows, you know? And like, he needs to perform now the next time. Obviously, he does. Of course, he does. But like American Mike still was 5 or 6 to 1 on to beat Let's Be Clear About It, and beat him comprehensively. And that is a decent horse, Let's Be Clear About It. And has a chance even in a race like the Albert Bartlett. But look, will they ever come back to their best? I don't know. It's a guessing game. Normally, when they start doing those things, they never really come back at all. But you just don't know. I mean, I still think I just look at he's about 20 or 30 to 1 there on the computer machine. Like, I wouldn't like to be laying it at the same time. If he did happen to win, he come right back, because Elliott doesn't have another horse for that race, does he? Not really.
Certainly not in the but he's got Irish Point, hasn't he? He could end up here or in the 2 miler, I guess. But
you could. I couldn't have Irish Point in my mind after last Sunday at the same time. I mean, I thought that ran horrific now. Like, I thought of all the horses that ran in those races, that just absolutely ran vile in my eyes anyway. Absolute Notions looks like a horse that might want 3 mile, doesn't it? Like, he absolutely go for 3 mile race.
Yeah,
Look,
yeah.
I still think it's a tricky race yet, and like, how good is Impere? Pass is a big question too. I mean, that's if good land. The one thing I would say about anyone back in good land are the horse in Marine National. I have a feeling. No, I might be all wrong about this. I have a feeling that the markets nowadays are not formed by so-called judges or people's opinions. They're formed by these algorithms and number crunchers and stats men and all that kind of stuff. And like, when these guys will have had no bet of any description once the day of the race comes. Like, Marine National would be put into some sort of a mixer where they come up with these prices that they come up with, and you'll be looking at a £5 claiming rider that's no claim, a guy that's never had a Cheltenham winner, Barry Condell. I could see him and Goodland drifting like a barge on the day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
If you're in a position of Marine National, and if you wanted to hedge, I'd be hedging some of your money, like right now, even, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Rather than waiting for the day. And if Marine National happens to run bad and it's nowhere, Goodland could be any price a second day. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. What price do you think Fassar will go off on the day if he turns up in the Supreme? Then do you think people will get stuck in, and the sort of reasons like that are why Marine will drift? Favoritism, Willie Mullins, horses back, and they're there on the day. Do you think that has sort of an effect on the likes of sort of Marine National and even likes of Tar Morris and like things that happen to smaller teams? And
well, I just find making a book in Cheltenham that the people, the public seized on horses, and you couldn't really fathom how they'd back them into such what appeared bad prices at times. I remember the last year Cato Star ran the Gold Cup. He was 12 to 1, or he was 12 years of age, I should say, and like, he finished up around 3 to 1 from about 8 or 10 to 1 early on in the week, and he went back from about 6 to 1 to 3 to 1 to finish even on the course, you know. And same with Honeysuckles, backed off the board every day it runs over them places. And I wouldn't be surprised if they back Facile Vega off the board either, if he turns up, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's your opinion on the anti-post markets then? A lot of people are saying obviously there's a lack of value now, Johnny. Do you? First of all, I seem to feel that the anti-post markets is much more popular than it used to be. Even I was playing anti-post 15, 20 years ago, when you could get prices on Rooster Booster and horses like that winning the Champion Hurdle 25 to 1 just because you went down and put your money down early. But now it seems like almost the bookies are trying to get ahead of the punters as well. Do you feel like there's an aspect of that as well? They don't want to miss out.
Well, I just think that with the Mullins domination, I think what happened a few years was that the bookies probably got their pants taken down with horses, you know what I mean? Where insiders knew where these horses were running in. And I'd say they got sick of it, and they cut the prices to ribbons, basically. And fellas will still take bad prices. Do you know what I mean? If you want to have a best anti-post now, like I didn't see. I've only one bet this year in anti-post. I backed home by the league. It's at 5-1. No bet, but it's going to be 5-1 now, because there's other horses after getting, like Tihupo after coming into it, and maybe Blaze and Cal could be in the race. But overall, there's virtually no value, like none. I couldn't see it anyway. Not like years ago when you could back. I mean, I can't even remember. Like I remember I could go to Cheltenham with 10 anti-post bets, maybe 10 or 12, definitely 6 or 7 or even 8 of them alive, you know?
Yeah, sure.
But I think last year I don't think I had any anti-post bet going there. I had 1 or 2, but virtually very few. And this year I've only 1. Now I might have another 1 or 2 before the time comes. But the way the days of getting on a yoke at say 20 and it finishing up 2-1, they're hard horses to find nowadays. Anyway, as far as I can see, anyway. Like I don't see. I see very like Facile Vega. Okay, it was 5-2. I suppose you could be on John Bond at 5-1 at the same time, and you could be on Constitution Hill. He was around 7-4 or something like that. So
Yeah.
they look terrible prices at the time, but they turn out okay. But then you have other races. I mean, you could be on Facile Vega and Evans too. You could be on the horse that he was in he won the Albert Bartle last year. The next, what's he called? He was in
The nice guy.
The nice guy, yeah. Like you could be on him 5-1, you'd be gone. You could be on. You could be on Honeysuckle 3-1 too. Who knows? Do you know what I mean? It's more difficult, I think, this year. Like I remember going back years, even back on the flat. I mean, I backed a horse. I actually won one year. Won the Guineas. We backed to 21. We went to back a horse the following year, and you couldn't even get on it. It's the same stable now, you know. No, the horse we backed the next year didn't win at all, but nowhere. But you could get what you like on horses anti-post one time. Now it's a lot more difficult. It's a lot more difficult to get on anti-post, and I don't know. I didn't see much anti-post value this year anyway. To be honest, now fellas will be showing you dockets and saying, "Oh, look, I'm on this," but you never see the ones where the duds that are on at the same time. You know, that's what very few punters show the dud dockets as far as I can see anyway. But look, I do think that the prices are like let them be like Sprinter Sacker could have been 6 or 7-1 to win the Arkle. Now you have horses like could be 2-1 at the same time. You know that kind of way. Those similar kind of horses, like even what price was what's favourite for the Arkle this year? John Bond, 5-1. But look, I think what cases a lot of it too was Mullins having 3 and 4 horses, and next thing. The one comes out of left field, and you don't lay the other ones then, and they're left with the one that is running in. So I think that's a lot to do with it too. And like basically up to this year, and maybe the same thing will happen this year. How many stables can actually win some of these races too? You know what I mean?
That's the thing. It's such a different game now. Again, going back, you'd have all sorts of people. Like you're hardly ever going to see the likes of Kim Baileys and your Fergals picking up. They just don't have the ammunition now. It's just as simple as that. But like you said, with those shorter prices, it's definitely worth waiting till the day. I guess bookies are a little bit more brave on the day as well. I mean, look at Shishkin as well. He was almost a banker for most people when he won the Supreme, but he went off 11-2, 6-1 on the day and still managed to win. So I definitely think we hold out a little bit more now and be a little bit more patient. There's nothing worse than rushing out there to try and get the multiples, chasing value before everyone else, because you think, oh, everyone else is going to get on this value. And then find out you're chucking your tickets away. Like this weekend with Facile Vega, there's trees and trees worth of slips that are going to be going in the bin, aren't there, for this one? But
yeah, exactly. Look, anti-post it's certainly not easy anyway. I don't know. I do think you're right. You probably you probably get better anti-post value nearer the time. Take your chances that 2 or 3 weeks away that your horse will run. Don't mind the no bet. And have and you could finish up being on something at. I mean, I remember years ago we backed. I had a fortune on a horse at 7-2 to win the Triumph Hurdle. He didn't win it now. He was second. like about 10 days beforehand at about 7-2 or 3-1, you could finish up to knock you down at even money 11-10 on the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think Celestial Halo won that race. It was a horse of
Nichols.
McManus was King trained him. Can you remember he did kind of I'm not sure his name now.
But yeah, what the was it Catch It? You want about Catch It? You had?
No, it wasn't. It was Carabac or something like that. It could have been.
Yeah. It was. No, that was it. Carabac. It was. Carabac.
Was it? Yeah.
But
it would Celestial Halo won that race anyway.
Yes.
But like maybe 8-10 days beforehand, I don't know what I done. I could have been like 20 grand in it at 7-2, and you could lay 11-10 to 20 grand. You know, about 8 days later. So there's still probably some bit of value, but it's few and far between at the same time. You know.
Got to be a lot smarter with it now. I think play your cards right. Don't chase any bets. Keep yourself and just stick with your decision as well. I mentioned this a lot, Johnny, about too many people don't. At the beginning of the year, I was telling people don't cover Fassar for the Supreme and for the Bally. Take your pick, take your chance, and just keep it simple because otherwise you're going to build up all sorts.
Yeah.
And you don't want to get to the Cheltenham Festival as well, landing one of your anti-post bets and then finding you've got your money back from all the losers that you've been doing over the last months. It's just no fun at all for anyone.
Yeah.
Really. But
and then you've another thing too is you do want to switch in and out of races, but you're better off taking a chance. I remember one year I did I backed what was it again? I backed Yanworth for the 2.5 mile race.
For Alan King and JP.
Yeah. And I backed York Hill for the Supreme, and they switched York Hill from the Supreme into the other one to beat Yanworth, and it cost me twice. You know what I mean? Now he mightn't have won the Supreme, but if he didn't run it in the other one, Yanworth would have won at the same time. So, so you could get done like that at the same easily as well. But look, that's all part and parcel of it. But yeah, I think you're right. You can't back him for 2 races anyway. Like you've got to go and if you pick your horse, go for 1 race and forget about like combining him with on different, because you finish up being on him at a terrible price then if you're going to cover both races. Like Facile Vega was something like 5-2 for the Supreme and 4-1 for the Ballymore. So that's even money. Like you know what I'm saying? Even money that he's going to win either race if you cover both. So that's a disgusting price. Like 6 months in advance.
Right. Well, if that's you brought me a bit of nostalgia back there mentioning York. I used to love the Graham Wiley horses. English Dreamer was one I just loved as well. Tough as old boots. You don't get many like that anymore. Okay, no. God, he was some horse. He's like Paisley Park, but a better version. I don't mean I'm not knocking Paisley Park, but he was fine. It was unbelievable. Right, the Albert Bartlett then. This one's a little bit interesting this year too. We've got Hidden Valley Lake at 11-2. We've got Embassy Gardens at 13-2. Corbett's Cross at 8, 3-car Bragg at 8, Sander Clegane for Paul Nolan at 10-1, Absolute Notions at 12s, American Mike at 14s, and then again, pretty much any you like for the remainder. Joe, do you like Hidden Valley Lake? He stepped up to win at Cork. I think he stepped up from 2 mile free at Naas to win pretty decisively. Is he one of the ones that is on your radar for this race? I think he may be a little bit one-dimensional.
Yeah, I mean, the form has received a boost over the weekend because Core Survivor was back in second and he ran well enough in the Nathaniel Lacey. He was only beaten 4 or 5 lengths into 4th. I mean, you just doubt the Bombheads this season. The stable stars haven't really fired. The form hasn't been good. And you just think there might be another horse in this race with just an extra gear or 2, because I think there's probably a bit of a misconception that you just need to be an absolute slogger to win this race. If you look at the Nice Guy last year, he had form winning over 2.5 miles. So you kind of do need a slight turn of foot in this race. Whether this horse has one, probably I do doubt that. He's not on my short list anyway.
And Johnny, do you like Hidden Valley Lake?
No, not really, Joe. I think look, Cork Farm isn't worth a sausage in here for starters normally. You know, I wouldn't be going with him. I know that they don't rate him as a top horse anyway, Hidden Valley Lake. So I'd be, and what Joe is right about, like the stable isn't rank bad form too. I mean, you all the whole season really, it's very much in and out. And okay, they'd have the odd few winners, but then they go out of form. Now you could pick a few horses that he did run at the weekend. They run okay, but like he's a chance of having drawn dead in Cheltenham, isn't he? This year, Henry de Bromwell, I don't see him having too many winners anyway. And like this is a tricky race as well. Obviously, they're all tricky races, but he'd be the one I'd nearly draw a line through straight away anyway. I don't really fancy him, to be honest.
I think he'd need to be brought into the race as well off a really strong pace. And I even think then he needs a lot to go his way. I just think we've taken a little bit of recency bias at the time and he's never really budged from the market there. I definitely think we've got a few classier horses in the lineup. Embassy Gardens is in this race. He's one I can't put my finger on because, again, he's one of these horses that's just gone off and done his own thing. You haven't really got too much to compare it to. And what I struggle to get involved with horses like this is you never know how they're going to react when they've got a horse upsides them. You don't know if they're going to have any sort of turn of foot at all. So visually, it's easy to say, oh, this thing's won by 20 lengths and he's going to pull away and dominate this field again. But has he got any tactical sort of gears, this one? I'm not too sure. Again, you're taking this one on trust quite a lot, Johnny, aren't you, based on just what we've seen so far?
Yeah. Like, to me, I had a few quid, and a good few quid in him actually the last day he won. But like there was nothing whatsoever in that race. I mean, the two Elliott horses absolutely ran shockers, didn't they, really? And like he was fourth to good land. He made a few mistakes now. He probably should have been second. But I have a feeling that's about as good as he is, you know what I mean? And even on his first run in I backed him in Mallow, and I know it was only 2 mile. It was against a horse of Elliott's there. He's no flying machine anyway. He's belonged to that Alamar stud. I can't remember his name now, but he wouldn't be. He's not a great horse today, but he beat him. But this fella coming to the last swished his tail as well. Embassy Gardens that day, you know, and I just think if anyone else trained him, he'd be any price. I think he has a chance, but that's all. And like winning that race in Thurles by half the track, like that was an absolute egg and spoon. That was an awful race altogether. Look, I could see he looks like kind of a whatever this call him, like an embryonic chaser and all that kind of stuff. Look, you'd have to respect the outfit, but I'd be surprised if something can't take care of him on the day now, to be honest.
Very surprised we're at the front of the market, the pair of them, to be honest. As I said, without a lot to weigh up, it's, again, even go back to sort of like Sander Clegane, he's one that's likely to appreciate the step up to 3 miles. But after seeing him in Nathaniel Lacey, again, he's a little bit one-dimensional. I understand the liking and the taken to the Albert Bartlett. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if if he finds 1 or 2 too good. And I think he is just going to be one of these horses that, unfortunately, does find 1 or 2 good in some of the big races. Stepping up to 3 miles likely to suit. I really like Paul Nolan, but I can't help but think there's something out there a little bit better. Joe?
Yeah, it's kind of all of these are kind of decent horses, but there never really is any world beaters in this. Otherwise, they'll be running in the Ballymore or even shorter. If the ground did get soft, which probably is unlikely, 3-card Bragg for the McNeil family, I think he's a pretty good soft ground horse. I mean, he probably won't get them conditions on the way, but I think he was pretty impressive, and he just pulled further and further clear of the Willie Mullins horse that he came up against last time. A replication of that form would probably see him run well, but the question is, can he do it on better ground? And the answer probably is no.
I've just got an inkling that he might be a little bit better than these. Like, I totally understand the view that he needs deep ground, probably deep Irish ground, probably even better, but it might be a case that there's not too much in this race that's just as simply as good as him. So I think that his engine might still enable him to go really, really close regardless. I think his staying power will come into this a little bit. Johnny, 3-card Bragg, obviously he likes this deep ground, but the Cheltenham Hill, it might play into his favour if he can travel round the hill well enough.
Look, I think 3-card Bragg is as Joe said there, ground is absolutely key to 3-card Bragg. He's one of the, as you say yourself, he's one of those horses that need Irish soft ground, not just the like soft in like he'd need Sandown stuff. You know what I mean? If there was English ground, I do think if just say that the Albert Bartlett landed on a day, which is extremely unlikely, like the Wednesday last year in Cheltenham, where it lashed rain all day long. Yeah, that day. I fancy he'd win it by half the track, 3-card Bragg. Wow. I think he's an absolute machine on heavy ground, but he ain't going to get it. And when they will run him as well, they will run him because there's no, you know, it's Cheltenham and they'll take a chance and they'll run him. And you'll find that he'll probably make a rake of mistakes going around. You know that kind of way.
Yeah. What about
and because that's what they do when the ground is too lively from them. They start hitting the hurdles, and that eventually takes its toll on them, you know, that kind of way. But I don't even think, like, just say you got yielding, whatever you call it, like good to yielding. That wouldn't be soft enough for him, I don't think.
He's not exactly flashy, is he? He sort of reminds me of like Jerry Colom's sort of horse.
Yeah. Very similar kind of horses. Yeah, very, very similar horse. I fancy this is even a better horse than Jerry Colom.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
I do rate Jerry quite highly. I think he's good. I think he's got very good.
Jerry Colom is a very good horse, but again, the ground is, like I'd say, Sandown was as tight as he'd wanted. And I think if he gets that ground that he got, if he gets good to yielding in Cheltenham, he won't win, Jerry Colom, because he's a much better horse that he showed in Sandown. Even, like, I just think that the ground was probably too quick for him, because at one stage in Sandown you'd say he was going to win alone. He was going to win very, very easy. Like he was like 5-2 on with about 6 to jump. Yeah. And the next thing he was letting even money again and running. Like he was never getting beat from the last home. But turning in, you wouldn't like to be on him, would you? Like, really, to be honest. But I do think Jerry Colom is one of those horses that likes it bad. But 3-Car Bragg is a real mudlark, And I don't think he's going to get it, to be honest. You rarely get that kind of ground in Cheltenham.
It just doesn't happen, does it? Never happens.
No. And Corbett's Cross is another similar horse like that. He likes bad ground too, you know.
Horses that like real deep ground, do you think they can get away with it on softish conditions if they go chasing, because of the effort that it takes them to actually get across the other side? Does that make sense? Because they're going to have to put a little bit more emphasis on the jumping. Do you think it may help them a little bit next year?
I honestly couldn't answer that question. I don't really know. But like, if horses hit the ground hard, I think that's what they are. If the horses hit the ground hard, and it definitely unnerves, it affects them. They're jumping anyway, in particular. That horses jumping will go to pieces on the ground that's too lively for it, you know.
Sure.
I mean, that's a trap that I often fall into myself. Like, I'd never ever back a horse that I would think wouldn't go on bad ground.
Yes.
But I'd often chance a yoke
the other way around.
On ground that's too fast for it. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Because I'll say I'll chance it. You know, that kind of way. Now, if I thought a horse wouldn't go on heavy ground, I'd say, I can't win. But sometimes you'd say, he might get away with it. It's not too bad. And you talk yourself into backing it, and eventually you'll see him. They don't win most of the time at the same time. Look, I think in a place like Cheltenham, you need everything in your favour. You don't need little negatives like hanging over you. And if the ground, and 3-Car Bragg, in my eyes, is, you want to go back and look at his bumper. The very first race he won, it was up to his eyeballs. It was, you know, in the muck there. So I just think that he's a really, really good horse, but he's a really good Irish winter ground horse. And I have a feeling you'll not see that kind of ground in Cheltenham. He might land in a day. He might be lucky now. You know what I mean? He might be lucky, but I'd say it's doubtful now. It's doubtful. But and he will probably run. So when he's in the race, then I'd hate to have too much on it to beat him, just in case he did handle the ground. Maybe, you know, the horse I was given a chance down here is let's be clear about it. I think that has a chance in this race at a big prize. He will handle better ground, and he's been trained specifically for this race. No, he wasn't trained for any other race. This will be the one he'll be aimed at.
He had some.
Like, there's another horse that has no chances. Favori de Champdou.
No chance whatsoever. I don't
None
understand.
in the world.
I don't even understand the angle with him coming to the Bartlett, to be honest with you on that one.
Yeah, that is a million. And it's an old crock as well. I'd say it's being held together by glue. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
that way.
Fragile.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't have that at all anyway. But it's often a race where an outsider could win it too, wouldn't it? Like something like Dawn Rising, you wouldn't know on good ground. It could come into the race like 3 miles, and it's like it's a flatbred horse too. And look, go down to him here. There is some nice horses down at 25 and 33 to 1 that could come into it like as well. But that's the horse I'd be I have a little bit of an interest in. Let's be clear about it. Cromwell has a good record in Cheltenham too.
He does indeed. Did
he win this race with Vanilla? Did that win that race?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. And like Vanilla came from like beating 60 lengths in his previous run. So like this guy has nowhere near as bad a profile as that. So he has a chance in, like, But I suppose, look, again, I'd wait till see the conditions, because I'd hate to be on something and next thing you did start lashing rain and your man 3-car brag is in the middle of them. Like I would back, if the ground came up heavy, I'd back 3-car brag at 5-2 to beat these horses.
Jeez, okay, that says a lot. I like Dawn Rising as well, Johnny, you said, but I got a feeling they may send him to like the Martin Pipe or something potentially. I think that's maybe the angle they're looking at the moment.
Which one?
Dawn Rising.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
I've had a little squeak myself. I like keep and ahhing whether to press the button or not really with him. But
yeah.
What I do like here, I put up last week, 2 weeks ago in the compilation video I did, Johnny, was Absolute Notions. I had him in this race of 40-1 for the Rob Core team. He's now 12-1 based on how well he stayed on in the Nathaniel Lacey. Now, he stayed on a lot better than Sandor Clegane. So for me, he should be coming into this race. And they paid £370,000 for this horse. I think he was quite forgotten before the Nathaniel Lacey. He ran a really good race. But again, there's talk of this one going to the Martin Pipe. But surely when they're spending that much money on him, I know they got Hidden Valley in the late, the Rob Course, but it's 12-1 for this race, which looks incredibly open at the moment. And he's one that's going forward. Can you see him running a good race? I quite like him.
Yeah, I do too. And I'm told the better the ground, the better his chance. The ground is quite important to this horse. That if he gets the ground that you get in Cheltenham normally, he'd come into it even more so, you know. Now, if the ground happens to come up soft, I wouldn't fancy him. I'm told now reliably that the better the ground, the better his chance. He stayed well, is right the other day. He ran well. But look, I could see him having a say. Yeah, he's a young, unexposed horse. I mean, he only won a bumper. His first bumper was in Punchestown last year. So he's racing less than a year at the same time, you know. And he's come a long way, in like from winning a bumper to having a chance in a Grade 1 and like running a Grade 1 in Leopardstown and this Grade 1 here. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he ran well even won the race.
I think he's a bit of a forgotten horse. I mean, I know when he got beaten, Nace, it was soft ground as well. I definitely didn't like it.
No.
I like the powers that be. I like the fact Rob Core have dished out the money to buy him, and I know that's not something that you should go on, but the way he then came back and ran in the Nathaniel Lacey, I honestly think he's a really forgotten horse in this race. I really do think he can go well. Joe,
he can definitely. Yeah.
So if we go back through the Supreme, I want one selection from the Supreme, the Bally, and the Bartlett. Johnny, you don't have to answer the Supreme if you don't want. I know you put a high definition based on value. But Joe, who's your selection in the Supreme if I pushed you for one now?
If I had to side with one, it'd probably be Ilete Toms, I think, after his performance over the weekend.
Okay. Johnny, high definition for you?
Yeah, look, I hope that he gets there. And if he does, I think he has a sporting chance. I mean, I wouldn't think he's in each way better or anything like it. I think he's a winner, blowout merchant myself. But,
that's it.
Yeah. But if he did happen to get into a rhythm, and it is much easier to jump to hurdles when you're on your own, and I expect him to be on his own for a share of the race, hopefully maybe all of it. Look, I think he's a sporting chance in a tough race. Yeah, in a tough race.
Yeah, he'll have nothing to distract him really, except the crowd going wild. But
yeah.
Well, for me, my nap of the festival's Marine Nationale. Put my neck on the line. There's no point me stopping now. Marine Nationale for me in the Supreme. What about the Ballymore then, guys? Johnny, what about you then for the Bally?
1 second now. The Bally at this point,
it's a little bit open.
I think I'd go with Goodland. at this point. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think he has more done. He's Grade 1 form. He has Leopardstown form, which is very important. He's a good traveller. He's a good jumper, and he stays the distance. Well, they'll all probably stay, but he looks like a pretty uncomplicated horse to me, and he looks to be getting better. Like again, he didn't win a bumper. He didn't win a bumper until this year as well. So like he hadn't much racing done either. So like he could finish up anywhere. He's the one I'd go for. At the moment. Yeah.
Found two little gems, Barry Connor here, hasn't he? Joe, who'd you like in the Bally?
Yeah, I think I'd just give American Mike a chance. He's a 20-1 shot. He's got a lot of question marks. We all know that. But I think there is a good horse in there. If Gordon Elliott can get the right tune out of him, we'll see this weekend if he can brush up his jumping. And if he can, he'd probably be able to run well in a race like the Ballymore.
Yeah, Joe, I hope you're paid off for bravery. You always fortune favours the brave, don't they? Well, for me, it's Goodland. Again, think he's a really good horse. Similar to Johnny, he's done enough and he's very professional. I like the fact I think he's just a little bit ahead of the others, but time will tell. Okay, and then on to the Bartlett. I'll go first. I put up Absolute Notion, so I'm going to stick with him. I really hope that they go for this race. Cost them enough money. I think he can get them a little bit of it back in the Bartlett. Joe, for you?
It wouldn't be a strong selection, but Sandor Clegane, I thought he gone well enough at the weekend. This trip and test would probably suit him. So at 10-1, it'd probably be an each way bet and not too much money on him though.
Okay. And Johnny, for you?
I'll go with look with the prospect of the ground. I can't put up 3-car break because he's not going to get his conditions. I don't think he is. Look, I'd go with small each way and let's be clear about it.
Okay, lovely. Yeah, there you go. Nice bit of value to finish us off there as well. Right, well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Joe's with me every week, but Johnny, we give a massive thank you to you for giving us your time. We know you're a really busy man. It's been an honor, really. honestly, to have you on. It's been an honor to have you on here. It really has. I know I've got a group chat, Johnny. They've all been really excited when I told them that you were going to come on the show as well. And so, yeah, really grateful. And obviously, I wish you all the best of luck in the future as well.
Okay, thanks very much for having me on. I much appreciated. I'll talk to you again, guys.
No worries, Johnny. Cheers, Johnny. Joe.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers. See you, Joe.